Greetings and welcome back to room 303 in our Chats with Emily, as we are calling our readings through the poetry of Emily Dickinson contained in the Johnson edition. We turn now to poem 149, She Went as Quiet as the Dew, another tribute poem about an unknown person. Now, it's interesting that in our poems that we've been studying, 140 through 150, we have a lot of treatments of individuals dying, and there are some who read 148, 149, and 150, all attributable in some ways to Charlotte Bronte, who we mentioned in our last lecture. Now, our assumptions are that you've been following our stuff at LearnStrong.net, down that left-hand side, Chats with Emily, our playlist. And I'm hopeful that you've already been exposed to an introductory set of comments as well as our preceding 148 poems. As I said, we just finished with All Overgrown by Cunning Moss, the celebration of Charlotte Bronte. Now, here we see Emily with a reference to the French scientist Lavier. He will be mentioned at the conclusion of this poem. Lavier is a great French director of the Paris Observatory for 20 years, scientist. His dates are 1811 to 1877. He helped to discover the star that would be known as Neptune in 1856. And we're going to have a reference to this here, very much like Charlotte Bronte and in poem 148. She never returned to the hills of Yorkshire, and whoever is being referenced here also never returned. The poem reads, She went as quiet as the dew from an accustomed flower, not like the dew did she return at the accustomed hour. She dropped as softly as a star from out my summer's eve, less skillful than Lavier. It's sorer to believe. Now, again, we don't know who she's referencing here. It's possible that she could be just musing again on Charlotte Bronte. She could be musing on any number of folks. Notice it begins by pointing out that she went as quiet as the dew. I point out at 3A for us that Dylan Thomas, of course, do not go gentle into that good night, could have been responding to a poem like this where there's a couple of different ways to go, and one of those is quiet as the dew from an accustomed flower. Notice accustomed here capitalized, not like the dew did she return at the accustomed hour. And in our discussion of 148, I shared with you those lines that were not a part of the actual poem that Johnson will provide. You'll remember that Charlotte Bronte, it was said, she never returned back to the hills of Yorkshire. She dropped as softly as a star, and this will be fascinating because, of course, Neptune is the star that Lavier helped to discover from out, notice it's my summer's eve. And in that regards, I find it kind of fascinating, the language that she uses of the falling star, less skillful, and then she'll mention Lavier. It's sorer to believe with the exclamation point. In other words, what are we saying at 2A here? Well, the passing of a pal is hard, right? And we've kind of seen this through these death poems, as we're calling them, of poems 140 to 150. We'll play the same game, by the way, in 150. And I love it to be the reference here to this great scientist. And notice Emily just kind of, is she showing off? I don't think so. I just think she's kind of letting you know that she loves her study of science. At 3A, well, as we said already, poem 148, and of course Dylan Thomas's as well, observations, do not go gentle into that good night, which leads us to a 3B question. Who is for you a person who you have lost in your life that went as quiet as the dew? And what about your own thoughts about your own departure? Do you want to go as quiet as the dew? As I've said to you about all these poems regarding death, I think standing behind all of them is Emily's reading of Plato's Phaedo, where Socrates will, of course, get ready to take his journey, his wanderings, you'll remember, was the language of poem 148. I hope that all these poems are challenging you to think a little bit. Thank you.